Today, where do women in Pakistan turn when they're the victims of cyberbullying? I'm Femi OK.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
I'm Sonia Shah. I'm a science journalist, and I write about global health and human rights, and I'm in the stream.
Imagine that you're scrolling through Facebook when suddenly a message pops up from someone claiming to have explicit photos of you. They demand money or threaten to publicise the photos on all of your social media accounts. Incidents like these are not uncommon for women in Pakistan, and options for seeking justice are limited.
Last year, more than 3,000 cybercrimes were reported to the Pakistan Federal Investigation Agency. 45% of those targeted were women using social media. But the complaint process is tedious and can be intimidating, and women often stay silent for fear of being ostracized. The Digital Rights Foundation recently asked women in Pakistan what kind of an internet they want. Here's what they said.
You can't really take men out of the internet, so...
I'm comfortable with it.
The annoying Redditors would go away.
सिक्योर नहीं होता इंटरनेट बहुत जगह पे पिक्चर्स लोगों की गलत इस्तेमाल करते हैं लोग और जो है पासवर्ड्स वगैरह वो सारे सिक्योर होने चाहिए.
So how are women tackling online misogyny and harassment in Pakistan? Here to talk about this, we have Nikat Dad. She is the founder of Digital Rights Foundation. She just launched Pakistan's first ever cyber harassment helpline, and she joins us from the Netherlands, where she's accepting the Tulip Award for Human Rights for her work on women's digital rights in Pakistan. Amna Nasir is a writer with Feminism in India, an organisation devoted to women's rights. She joins us from Rawalpindi, Pakistan. Rabia Mahmood is a researcher and journalist in Lahore, Pakistan. And Sana Salim is the co-founder and director of Bolabi. That's an organisation working on internet freedom and gender in Pakistan. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for being on the stream today.
You know, Femi, when we told our community and people online that we were doing this show, we asked for stories from people to see if they'd ever faced online harassment. The stories, unfortunately, came rolling in. Here are just a few of them. Natasha on Twitter says, "Not a week goes by that I don't get a rape, assault, or death threat, and almost always the troll is based in Pakistan. I live in Canada," she says. Another person writes in, "As women on the internet, we're constantly policed. The first line of attack is always on appearance." And one more here, Alia Chuktai, who's written for Al Jazeera English's website. She says, "It's always the first thing is how fat or how ugly you are." She's using the hashtag #AJCyberRights. Right before the show, we held a Twitter chat asking for people to share their stories around the world, because this is, of course, something that people, not just in Pakistan, can relate to. But Nigat, when you hear these stories that people are sharing, what goes through your mind? Can you relate?
Oh, absolutely. This is happening quite more as the internet is accessible to more and more people. The way this misogyny and sexism is appearing on the on internet, and it's the same mindset that the women have been facing in the offline spaces, is the patriarchal misogyny, sexism mindset, which is now shifting to the internet. So of course I can relate to it, and I mean, this is something that I also face it like every single day, talking about my appearance, talking about the work that I do, and also how outspoken I am. So it's very hard for some trolls and men and other forces on internet to digest what I'm saying.
So Nigat, can you give us an example of that? You say it happens to you every day. So every day you're online, and then what happens?
So whenever I talk about my work, so it's not only the state trolls, there are like non-state forces who always try to resist what you are saying. And when you are a woman, you are outspoken, you know how you are, you know how you can exercise your right of freedom of speech. People attack you, they resist your narrative, and if you are challenging the patriarchy, it's really, really difficult for others to digest. So
Rabia, give us an example of this, because you've been researching it, so you've got a lot of women's stories. I think it might be hard for people who haven't experienced this to actually understand the level of trolling that's going on.
Well, predominantly, I study religious expression online by the extremist religious groups and individuals. What I can give you an example. I don't want to turn. It's not just about me, but I think that's happened to other journalists and activists in Pakistan, and it's happened to men as well. But when it comes to women, the threats are not just death threats, but they're also rape threats, threats of sexual assault, and organized attacks. I want to talk about not just hate speech, but dangerous speech, organized, orchestrated attacks on women journalists and women activists. It happened in 2015 when some of us were rallying for when the moratorium on executions was lifted by the government. Some of us were rallying on the ground, and then they were putting information online. And then after the assassination of Sabine Mahmood, who was a very vocal activist, and many more, she was much more than that. After that as well, the week following that, something happened to me. It was so well planned and orchestrated that I had to disappear from Facebook and Twitter and social media for a month. It was traumatic. So so this idea that cyberspace is not
Rabia,
real
you say
space.
it's traumatic.
Yes.
I really want the world to understand what is going on here. So I know it's difficult for you to talk about, but what happened to you? What was the something that happened to you?
Well, what happened to me was that I had tweeted something out of anger. Before that, prior to that, I was already prominent online because of my work. And then, so I kind of was marked as a journalist and as an activist. And by marked, I mean that I was already getting threats for like, oh, you're committing sedition and treason. And those accounts, if some very little research has been done by on that, but those accounts were not like real people. They were real people masquerading as other people, not just bots, but, users on those platforms with an agenda. And then what happened that when I tweeted, the 4 days after that, we were protesting against assassination of Sabine Mahmood and what had happened to her. And then there was this barrage of violent online violent speech against me, saying that there's a bullet with your name written on it and you need to be raped. But the words used were much worse. I mean, not that any word can be worse than rape, but they were basically cuss words. And there was no way to stop that hate from coming at me, although I did have a support system. So what I did was that I had to delete my tweet, something that I had never done in the history of my Twitter and Facebook usage. And then the next day, all of that was basically on very prominent Facebook pages, propaganda pages of the Pakistani military and people who support the, who just thought that my tweet was against of national interests of Pakistan for some reason. So that happened, and
Rabia,
Rabia,
what strikes me, I want to just pause, because what strikes me most of all what you said is that you got threats just for writing a story about something. I know you're not the only one who's faced that. We actually heard from people who have similar experiences. Have a listen to a couple of them.
I read something up on marital rape in Pakistan, and I researched more on it, and I eventually ended up writing an article on it. One of the commenters, he went overboard and sent me some personal messages on Twitter. They bordered to vicious body shaming. He told me that I deserve to be raped and then killed, but I'm so ugly that no one would ever want to touch me.
I have been cyberbullied for a year. And that guy could access my laptop. He could access everything which I write, which I see, and he could even access my webcam whenever he wanted to.
A lot of the times our attitudes about women offline will translate into how we treat online spaces. So if you think women are not active partakers or owners of offline spaces, then those attitudes are definitely going to be found online.
So Sana, you hear those stories. What's an option for women who are facing things that those women face? What can they do? What's the first step you would tell someone to do?
So you mentioned a few statistics with the Federal Investigative Authority. I'd like to sort of reiterate the fact that the number of cases that actually go to the Federal Investigative Authority are minuscule. We get a lot of calls because we do a lot of offline digital security trainings, and our foot in the door is just to speak to kids about how to secure their online communication. And it's unfortunate because the vast majority of the time, victims or survivors do not trust authorities because they don't want the information that they, oftentimes they're being threatened that information will be released, but they're not released. And they don't want anybody else having access to that information. There's also these flaws within, and we talk about it, I think, for sure, the cybercrime law, where when you actually pursue a complaint, they're scared that the threats will be admitted as evidence. And once they're admitted as evidence, they become public, they become open to public. And
Sana, slow down for a moment, because that's really important. The idea that if you do report cyberbullying, and then the thing that's traumatizing you is then made public, is there a way around that?
So that's what we were campaigning for, that there should be better protection within the law to protect that. Unfortunately, there isn't so. And even if there is, it's a long way from actually getting people to trust authorities to a point where, a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, we don't want to talk to the FIA because the man or anybody that's talking to me might victim shame me. And even though we've worked with the FIA ourselves,
can I also jump into this? So Sana, what you were saying about the FIA, the law has actually some of the provision which actually deal with the cyber harassment and online violence in Pakistan. But the main issue is that the people who want to report to the cyber harassment wing, cybercrime wing at FIA, they don't trust the authorities, because most of the time they come back to us and telling us that they are victim blaming us, they are slut shaming us, and women are so scared to share their evidence because they don't know what is going to happen with the evidence that they are going to submit with the law enforcement. And that's where we launched cyber harassment helpline, because they know that there are women on the other side of phone and they are listening to them and they have support. Where we have spoken to a lot of times to the cyber harassment wing at FIA and asked them to at least do some gender sensitization training, and at least there will be some women who can listen to the women. They know what is the culture in Pakistan, and women are not just comfortable talking about the issues of harassment that they face.
Amna said something that was really striking, Amna. I want to share this with everybody. Every woman in Pakistan faces harassment. That is a sweeping statement, but do you feel that that is absolutely accurate in what is happening in Pakistan right now?
No,
every woman?
Yes. No, not, of course. Harassments online, I think that is something so common in Pakistan and something so often, overlooked. Any woman with an active Twitter or an active Instagram page or an active Facebook profile with her pictures on, I'm sure at some point of her life she is harassed online. She is sent some, marriage proposal or some perverted messages or something. So yes, I think I don't have a stat to really solidify this statement, but I think as an observer and as somebody who talks to women on a daily basis, yes, I think any woman with an active social media presence is harassed online on a regular basis.
There's someone who has some thoughts on that. We got a video comment from Jamshed Qazi, who is the country's representative, Pakistan's representative to UN Women. Here's what he says happens when some women go to report. Have a listen.
Apart from the trivialization of online violence, the problem is exacerbated by misguided notions of honor, whereby reaching out for help for cyber harassment is in itself an admission of guilt. Guilty of simply having a social media profile in a public domain, which in some cases has led to suicide and even murder.
So reaching out can be an admission of guilt in some cases, unfortunately. Sana, I know that you were on the phone recently with a teenager, a 16-year-old, who wanted to kill herself after something happened to her. What happened?
Unfortunately, I wish I could say it was just one teenager. I've been on a phone with a lot of them who think that it's better to commit suicide than actually come to terms with the fact that they're being threatened, and they need to either report to the authority or take their parents into confidence and tell them that their former intimate partner or an ex-boyfriend is threatening them. And usually those pictures are harmless. They're just pictures with women who are wearing, they're not even nude pictures, they're pictures with women wearing sleeveless tops. But even if they're nude pictures, they're scared that when they tell their friends will say that, oh, why did you send that picture? In this particular case, it was a 16-year-old who got in touch and who said that her boyfriend, who was 17, was running a countdown that he was going to release her pictures. And the way that it works is that because he was friends with her cousins as well, he was going to put all the pictures on a Facebook account and tag all the friends. And she had only 2 hours to the countdown. She did not give me her consent to report to the authority. She wasn't willing. She did not want to talk to her parents. And the only thing, and that sometimes we have to come with innovative solutions. And the only thing that I could do was I looked for his details online. I found out that he was an abuser, but he was a good student. And I reached out to his parent, and I called his father up and I said, hey, I'm this representative, I work with Bolopi. There's a victim that's reached out to me. And the one white lie that I did say was that her parents know about this. Only one of the parents knew, but I said, both the parents know about this. They're very concerned. They want to report him to the authority, but they don't want a long drawn case. And these are the screenshots that your son has been sending this young girl, and please do something. And I was 90% sure that they're going to lash out at me. The parent is going to be protective of their child and lash out at me and not handle the situation. But thankfully, it was complicated, but it worked really well. The father called me back, said that the pictures have been deleted, that the son will not make contact again. It's been 2 years, a year and a half now, and he apologized to the girl. He never contacted again. But again, this is a very rare thing. It doesn't always happen, and it's very unfortunate that we have to be on the phone every now and then with young people who would rather end their lives than speak to their parents about it. And oftentimes we take the parents into confidence and tell them that, you can actually sit down with your child and police them and, be angry with them about what they've done. But now is not the time because you might lose your child. And it does work. But it's very complicated. It's long drawn. It's very traumatic for us as well when we're dealing with such a situation.
Let me just pick up on the idea of creative solutions. Have a look here on my laptop. The cyber harassment knows no boundaries, and this is a cyber harassment hotline that, Nikat, you have just launched December the 1st. It's now live. Tell us the reasoning behind it. How is it working?
So as Sana mentioned that she has been on calls with the young people, so that was the same case with us. People, young women or people who were facing harassment, blackmailing because of the pictures or because of their videos that they have, in their relationship they have sent to their partners. They were being blackmailed by their partners or former fiancés or whatever, and they just didn't want to tell to their families because it's a really cultural thing that women just don't talk about their relationships with the families. And when it comes to the pictures, I mean, they used to call us and talking about the issues, that how they are going to deal with this and they will commit suicide, or if the family will come to know, they will be honor killed. And it's really not rare in Pakistan. Women can be honor killed in the name of whatever, in the whatever they want to do in the online spaces. So and it became so much for me to deal with these calls and complaints. And I thought, if the authority is not going to do anything, if others are not going to do anything, at least we can, as a community, do something. And that's where the idea of cyber harassment helpline emerged. And it was a 1 year of work that we really, struggled that how we can launch the helpline, how we can secure the data of the people. And this will be a confidential and anonymous helpline. We are not going to ask people about their identities and share their issues. So the helpline is going to actually help with the digital security support, listen to the people if they are going through the emotional trauma, and if they want to know that what are the legal remedies available to them if they want to reach out to the law enforcement. So these are the 3 things that we are doing, and we are reaching out to the other helplines in Pakistan, that how they can support the victims or survivors of emotional trauma, and we can make this network strong instead of all the time, looking at the authorities and looking at the legislation. So that was the idea that was emerged after getting all the calls. And I mean, now since we have launched the helpline, it's like every 10 calls that we are getting every single day, and mostly are by women. So 99% calls from women, and only 1% calls we have received so far from men.
You know, there's also it's a cultural thing.
Go ahead, Amna.
And yeah, I think it's a cultural thing, and it represents our society as a whole. Women are more vulnerable to online violence because they are seen as a vulnerable group in the society, and whatever is happening online, the harassment or the bullying that's happening online, it's a reflection of our lives as women in offline spaces. So I think, and this is one of the reasons why women so often hesitate to report their cases to the authorities, because they're scared of their families. Nigat would know, they're scared of their families. They don't want to, let their parents know that they were in a relationship with somebody, or they have, objectionable pictures.
Itself, like authorities always tell them that, why did you put your picture at first place? Why do you even have account on Facebook? Why
do you have objectionable pictures?
Oh yes, so there is like all restrictions and limitations, and they judge you, they victim blame you, they slut shame you. So there is no way that women can reach out to them. There is a huge gap of trust between the cyber harassment victims and survivors, and then the authorities.
This is the quote that you both just said, Amna and Nigat. Maybe you shouldn't have put your pictures online. Momina on Twitter says exactly that. That's something that victims, she says, often get. You shouldn't have put your pictures on Facebook in the first place. The victim shaming needs to stop, she says. Another prescription for what can be done is also via Twitter. This is Sadaf, who says, becoming vocal feminists and coming publicly together to support others is a solid step towards challenging abuse. Rabia, for you, what would that first step look like?
I think in addition to, I want to basically talk more about coming back to tech, basically, because there is trauma. You disappear if something happens to you, because sometimes the level of or the nature of threat is such that the only way, the only thing to do, the smart thing to do, is to disappear for a while. And how do you come back? That's what I'm more curious to know, as to how and when do you make that decision that it is okay to come back online now. And how do you assert and check like what kind of threats that this person had, because threats are also of varying degrees, and how do you kind of assess that? Because as somebody who went through this myself, and I've seen this happening to other people, is that like coming back online is a problem, because coming back online is emotionally, psychologically taxing. And I've been in like physically dangerous situations, and I haven't really gotten so freaked out as coming back on Twitter, reactivating my account. And it's not just about me, it's just like a common thing. And I've seen that like people going through that. So that's what I want to know. And
let me just check in, Rabia.
There could be reflections on that.
Yeah, Sana, if somebody's watching right now and they are being trolled and they are being bullied online, what advice would you give them?
So it depends from people to people. In Rabia's case, and that's what I was going to raise. Rabia is a journalist who's on the forefront. The vast majority of the work that she does is on the ground, and she reports from situations that are very, very dangerous. So she's constantly putting her life at risk. And I know as journalists and reporters, we often don't see ourselves as that, but as an outsider, I definitely see it. So I would be much more concerned about an individual like Rabia, because she can't just disappear. She can disappear from online spaces, but she constantly has to do her job. That's part of her job. And there are trigger points as well. So when she comes back, she'll still write the story. That's the beat that she covers. So she still has to cover it, which will trigger more trolls. And I'll share sort of like a personal thing, as well as like combine it with the kind of strategy that I took. And it's by no way a foolproof strategy.
Sana, wrap it up in a sentence, because we're right at the end of the show.
Okay, so just to wrap it up in a sentence, I think we need to take threats online very, very seriously. Oftentimes when we do important work offline, we don't take them that seriously. And we also need to be mindful, especially when we do work on the ground, that online threats do often translate to offline actions.
Thank you so much. We are taking our ladies online to stream.outerzero.com, where we will continue that conversation there. Malika, what have you been seeing online so far?
Natasha wraps this up. It's awful. It's scary. The key will be a cultural shift. Once men see women as equals, the conversation will improve.
We will continue our conversation at stream.outerzero.com. For now, thanks for watching. Hello everybody, thanks for staying with us for our online post show. Sana, I hurried you because we were right at the end of the live show. What did you want to finish or flesh out?
Sorry, I didn't realize that we were right at the end of the show. What I was suggesting was that it's very important to take, especially when you're going to be on the ground every single day, in Rabia's cases, in the cases of many other female journalists that are on the ground, is that we absolutely need help of a security specialist, not just somebody who does digital security, but also physical security, and reassess what we're doing, even if it means like changing how you travel, or I know it's not always convenient, but to assess the situation that you're in, both digitally and physically, the modes of transport you use, the modes of communication you use, and to rewire and change that. It's absolutely important. And I say that as somebody who basically wrapped up all my offline work, a vast majority of it, and started doing a lot of my work just online. And I've now have had to not do work online as well because of the bizarreness of the threats that I have received. And a lot of them are psychological. Like, it started with rape threats, but they're a mix of rape threats. And, you know, the last threat that I got that really shook me was that there's this person or a group of people that keep creating these fake Twitter accounts, and they keep tagging people that I've recently spoken to talk about the fact that I have died in a freak accident, and they want to write about whatever, my death. And the last time, the first two times it happened, I was like, this is ridiculous, this is a Twitter troll. But the third time, the last time that it happened, actually a friend of mine who's very well known in Australia, Usher Wolf, tweeted it. And another prominent journalist, Glenn Greenwald, and Jeremy Scahill both tweeted that. And when I came online in 2 hours, I was on a flight, it was already all over the internet. And it was just psychologically traumatic. Like, it was a tweet that described that I was killed outside my residence in Karachi, and I was shot to death right outside the gate. It detailed what had happened, and it was really traumatic for me. So, it's a constant process of learning. And since then, I've reassessed how I communicate online. I've definitely reassessed all my physical security and how I communicate, or
Fanny, do you know what you're describing? Do you know what you're describing? You're describing the kind of precautions that a typical war correspondent would take as they go about their work, which is astounding when you think about that you're a writer, you're an activist, you're taking those kind of precautions. I guess, do you know what I have not heard in our conversation so far is about men. I've heard about men as the perpetrators, but I'm wondering whether part of the solution is working on culture, society norms, talking to men, education. I didn't hear you talk about men in that way. Am I missing something? Are you bypassing them? Nikat?
Well, in my experience, what I have seen that sometimes when all the time, when women are being harassed online, especially in Pakistan, there are men who are watching this. They see that this woman is being harassed. They can see the tweets, they can see the post, and sometimes even when women ask for help, they just don't help them. We cannot actually depend on these bystanders, to be very honest. But by saying this, I would also urge that we shouldn't take all the responsibility on ourselves, that we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. We need to ask these social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, what they are doing about these complaints, why their Facebook reporting mechanism is really not working for us, why when women report to them, why they are not listening, why there are not many regional languages, they are making money out of the data of their users. So why the reporting mechanisms are not working for us? So I think we also need to ask these Western companies that what exactly they are doing about it and how they are treating online violence against women in different countries. So I'm not asking that there should be different mechanisms for different countries, but their reporting mechanisms mechanisms should be as strong that every internet user who faces cyber harassment, they can report to this company and the company take action.
You know, Nigats, I know that that is something that women all over the world are facing and are calling on Facebook and Twitter and these social media companies to address. And so I know it's not just women in Pakistan, but I wanted to share a comment that we got. This is a video comment from Beena Shah. She's a New York Times columnist. She's also a Pakistani writer. And she talks about patriarchy on the one hand, and also on the other hand, how the internet has changed in Pakistan for women and how patriarchy has followed that. Have a listen to what she said.
The internet came to Pakistan in 1996. I was the editor of 2 internet magazines at the time. And what we found was that women were joining the internet quite a lot. It became very popular with women who were finding space and freedom online that they couldn't find in their daily lives. Now with Facebook and with Instagram, your real life identity is completely tied to your online identity. And the fact is that patriarchy offline has followed Pakistani women online now that that change has taken place. In fact, there are people in our society who think that women willing to be present online means an invitation for harassment, trolling, and threats of violence, which we're now seeing have increased over the last couple of years.
So Amna, you're nodding there. She says the patriarchy basically is just following women wherever they go.
Yes, you know, when I was listening to this comment, I couldn't help but, you know, think about Kandil Baloch. She was a social media celebrity and she was, you know, honor killed for expressing her sexuality online. And I think it just, you know, made me wonder. And I was thinking that women in Pakistan, they lack spaces in public and in their offline lives, in the society. And then they, you know, use platforms like Facebook or Instagram to express things that they cannot in their, you know, daily lives and in their real lives, if you can say. So they use the virtual spaces to, you know, reclaim those phenomena. So I think, and yes, patriarchy follows them there as well. They're trolled, they're threatened, they are killed, like in Kandil's case. So yes, I think patriarchy does follow women in online spaces as well.
Yes, I think Amna also, this was by killing Kandil Baloch, I think it was a message for women that how dare you reclaim your sexuality, how dare you claim these online spaces. So it was a very, you know, strong message to the women in Pakistan that you are not going to use online spaces the way Kandil used.
To break the molds.
I think, exactly. So I think it's very important that, you know, all the women who stood up against this honor killing of Kandil Baloch, who condemned it online, and I mean we face so much harassment and hate and rape threats and death threats because that we were condemning her murder and her killing. I think we need to get together. To be very honest, I see that the community is not strong, and we need to, these women who were condemning, these feminist groups, these women rights groups who are online, individuals, they need to stand with each other. And whenever someone is harassed, you know, not only the complaint mechanism, but how we can support each other and, you know, I'm not saying feeding the troll, but how fighting the troll.
Nikat, I think that's a perfect segue into this tweet that I got, and guess I'd like you all to respond to this, but very briefly, because we're at the very end of this part of the show. And this is an advice that is very common online, and Fastina says, ignore the trolls, they live for the thrill of it, don't lower yourself to that level, women are stronger. I'm not sure Fastina understands the level of trolling that is going on that we've been discussing. That's my take on it. What's your take? Just as we briefly wrap up this show. Nikat, ignore the trolls. Women are strong.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and Sana mentioned already that it varies from, you know, case to case. Trolls can be very dangerous sometimes, but it's also that how we can create counter narrative in these spaces. We cannot be silenced all the time, and also saying this, oh, women are stronger and they can fight it, and you know, or they just, you know, don't feed the troll. I don't agree with this. I think we need to fight this, and if we are fighting this, it means that we are fighting the patriarchy and challenging the stereotype, and it's a very long and hard struggle that I think we need to continue with this. I'm really not agreed with the idea of just being silenced and don't. I mean, you know, people are trolling us and we just don't say anything. I don't think so.
Rabia, final thought.
Ignore the troll. No, I don't agree with that. I mean, there are some trolls that you can ignore, but there are violent ones that you cannot. Also, trolls, because internet is such a heavily politicized space, trolls are also women, and we saw that in Kandil Baloch's case, and then we've seen that in other cases. And so, and there are cases where, and they're always male allies. They're always men who are part of our support systems. So I think that's what Nigat was saying about solidarity. We need to kind of beyond the gender divide, because we have women on the other side as well who are part of the problem. So we need to basically, of course, trolls can't be ignored, and also kind of try and build the solidarities with our allies as well, who are men, and be receptive to that. Yeah.
Sure. Guests, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your perspective as you tackle cyberbullying in Pakistan. Last word to our community via Malika.
I will give this one to Alia, who we heard from earlier in the show. In other tweets, she says, how you fight back is by being defiant. It costs you relationships, family members and friends, but there's no other way.
Nikat, Amna, Rabia, Sana, thank you very much. I wish you the very best of luck online and offline in your activism and endeavours. Thanks for being part of the stream today. Take care, everybody.